But then those you sign through.
Then you
I think it's
randomly
zero
answer.
for your two up, I think, but don't.
No.
Thank you, okay? Now can I get to work?
Oh,
You're always working.
oh,
How are you? Good, my friend, how are you? I'm fine.
don't worry about it. Fine.
No two people are How are you, sir?
There's no complaints on above ground.
I'm ready back. Ready. Yeah, oh no, use your compass.
We'll start with a moment of silence and salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided to the Westfield Leader, advertised on February 20th, 2014, and prominently posted on the Municipal Public Bulletin Board and filed in the office of the Municipal Clerk, informing the public of the time and place according to the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. At this time, I would like to ask everyone to please silence your electronic communication devices, and if you must take a call, to do so out in the hall. Thank you. Roll call, please, Ms. Ariano.
Mayor Petracchi?
Here.
Council President Palmer? Here. Councilman Martin?
Here.
Councilman Matthews?
Here.
Councilman Neersted?
Here.
Councilman Petrozelli?
Here.
And Councilwoman Tedisco?
Here.
This evening, the Finance Committee will be presenting the 2014 municipal budget. Go right into that now, right? Ms. Ariano?
That would be,
Yeah, we'll
Chair.
go right into that.
Yep.
I'd like to turn the meeting over at this point to our Finance Chair and her committee, Councilwoman Sarah Tedisco.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, first of all, I'd like to introduce our guests of the evening. We have our CFO, Sandy Bruns, here. We have our auditor, Warren Korecki, here as well. And I'd like to welcome the mayor, my fellow council people, and the residents to the presentation of the 2014 municipal budget. I have to say, it's very nice to see a much larger turnout than in years past. In some other years, it's been 1, 2, and so on. You can definitely count it on one hand. But tonight, it is a much better showing, and I hope it's something that does continue to grow. So despite the rough winter we've had, as all of you know, which caused us to cancel meetings or try to reschedule them and even schedule them around the weather forecast of the day, we were able to meet numerous times to work on the budget. I'd like to thank the other members of my committee, Councilman Petrozelli and Councilman Martin, as well as our professional staff of the Borough Administrator, CFO, and Auditor for all the time and energy they put into this budget and many meetings, and also in answering my much more than a few phone calls, as they know. As I've discussed at prior council meetings, starting in the last quarter of 2013, I knew we would be facing some pretty steep increases this year. Some are necessary to pay the borough's bills, such as an increase of about $37,000 to the RVSA, about $55,000 for contractual obligations, and about $25,000 for health insurance, in addition to other increases. Some increases in this budget reflect the need and desire of the council to make additions or changes in order to improve Garwood, such as an increase in about $46,000 toward redevelopment as reflected in studies and plans shown on the planning board budget, and for the implementation of COA. Also, we have budgeted for the hiring of a 16th police officer about halfway through this year, which will be a great addition to our police department, and it comes at the right time so that the new hire can be trained and brought up to speed right in time for the new senior complex coming in on 2nd Avenue, and also for all the future development that we are hoping to get in the near future. And we have also budgeted for our volunteer fire department and first aid squad to get their LoSAP award at the maximum level that they can obtain by state standard. And it has been determined that they can receive it based on their earnings in 2013. This means the LoSAP award will go from $1,150 to $1,589 per individual that qualifies, and the LoSAP page in the budget reflects a total increase of $19,651. Increasing LoSAP will show our current volunteers appreciation and will hopefully create an incentive for new members to join these important community service groups, as well as keep the volunteers we have. Now, I'm sure they're doing this job for a lot more than just this stipend, but it is still nice to reward them. I will bring up LoSAP again, actually, in just a few minutes, as it's one of the items I would like the entire council and mayor to discuss tonight. In addition to facing increases, the Finance Committee was also able to make numerous cuts to ensure the budget would remain tight while still being properly funded. We made about $80,000 in spending cuts in total, but did actually face additional increases during our budget process. These increases that we learned of while in the middle of working on the budget include $10,000 for tax appeals, $5,000 for tax appraisals, and $25,000 for debt service based on recommendations from our professionals. In addition to spending cuts, we were fortunate to be in a much better surplus situation this year. The borough surplus was boosted by approximately $100,000 in one-time funds from a couple of areas, such as FEMA reimbursement for Sandy. We chose to use as much surplus as we felt responsible to provide some tax relief for the residents. So, what does all this mean? In the end of the process, and as the budget is before all of us tonight, this budget reflects an increase of $44 per home assessed at $100,000, which is about where the average home is assessed in Garwood. Although no one is ever happy to announce a tax increase, the Finance Committee is proud to present the lowest municipal tax increase Garwood has seen in the last 12 years. This reflects a 1.21% tax levy increase. We are especially happy this increase also comes with funding for redevelopment, the hiring of a 16th officer, and an increase in LoSAP to our volunteers. An interesting note to add is that we started the budget looking at an initial tax impact of $156 per home assessed at $100,000. Before I open the meeting up to questions and comments from the council, mayor, and public, I would like to put a couple items on the radar for our council. For one, we received a memo and a copy of the CAP ordinance from our CFO, which I would ask Sandy and Warren to explain to everyone as they have to the Finance Committee. I'm sure some of you have already reached out for information from them prior to tonight, but I would like them to explain the situation and answer any questions anyone may have about the CAP ordinance, because it's an important decision to be made for us. Also, I would like us to discuss LoSAP, as I mentioned earlier, because the Finance Committee recommends, and the budget has, as it is before you tonight, has it in there so that the volunteers can receive the maximum payouts, but we could also provide an increase of a lesser percentage, as you can see in the chart that was provided to you on February 25th in your budget packet, if we choose, but this budget reflects the max. Finally, I would also like the council to discuss potential raises for non-union employees tonight, so that we can budget the potential raises based on the sentiments of the entire council. You received a chart on this in your packet as well. This is an issue the Finance Committee was really wrestling with. We went back and forth on this a lot of times. We think we came to a decision, we think about it and think about it back and forth. I can't really emphasize that enough, but although we ultimately budgeted for all non-union staff, protected and non-protected, to receive 1.75%, which is the percentage given this year to both unions. We would like input from the rest of the council. We were really between, when it came right down to it, we were between 1.75 for protected workers, which is 4 employees, 1.75 for the chief of police, and 1.75 for the planning board secretary, and basically 1% for everyone else that was listed on the chart. Or, on the other hand, we had simply 1.75% for all non-union employees. And basically, after looking at the numbers and seeing only about a $2,000 difference between both scenarios, we were leaning toward a recommendation of 1.75% for all staff. However, we would really like to hear what everyone else up here thinks so that we can adjust the budget if need be. A couple final notes: we will have graphs and charts to provide visual representation of the budget on March 25th at the introduction of the budget, which will be available to the council as well as the public. I would also just like to say there was much time and effort put into this budget by everyone, and I want to personally thank my committee, the Borough Administrator, the CFO, the auditors, specifically Warren was our sole auditor on this one this year, and all the department heads for their hard work in making a solid 2014 budget. The committee supports and approves this budget before you tonight, and at this time I would like to welcome any questions from the council.
As a member of the committee, I'd just like to make a few very brief statements. I'm the newest member of this committee, newest councilman, and in my long career in business and also a little bit of time I have here, I've very rarely seen anybody lead any kind of budget committee or budget function as well as Councilwoman Tedesco. I believe that the amount of work and the intelligence and the leadership that she's put into this, you can feel that Garwood is in very good hands. Lou Petroselli, I don't know him very well, but he's a business owner, and he included very, very competent and steady counsel. I didn't do very much, but I think it was between those two plus our town administrator. I mean, and let me also say that I don't think we pat ourselves on the back up here enough. We hear a lot of stuff, most of it's negative, so I just felt these comments would be in order. And also by including our administrator, Tina, in this. Without her, we didn't have the background, we didn't have the perspective on certain issues, and I believe that she really, we couldn't have done it without her and Councilwoman Tedesco. So I believe that you should all feel you're in good hands and have a pretty solid budget here. That's why I'm saying that.
Thank you. Okay.
My turn?
Well, I just want to make a comment prior to going into this. And then I too would like to thank my budget committee, especially the chair. I was very pleased when I received the budget worksheets that the council kept. I had no idea what was in it, and it's not something that I sit and I don't dictate to the committees. I believe that the borough is set up to run by committee, and those committees should be able to function, and everybody should be able to do their job. You know, I wasn't sticking my nose in. I'm not asking for reports every week or anything of those along those lines. I want to commend the chairperson of the committee, the finance committee. She has been my chairperson. This is her third year, and she's done a commendable job each year, culminating in this particular budget. And also I'd like to thank Mr. Petroselli and Mr. Martin, two local business owners. I know it's a daunting job when, you know, you're confronted with something that's, I don't even know how many pages long.
55.
Yes, there you go. And again, to them also, you did a great job. For those people who go over these things and pore over them, I know there are a couple out there, you'll be very happy to see that there are some areas that have remained totally flat, which I haven't seen that before. It's, you know, so that was wonderful. and the various expenses that the chairwoman has mentioned with regard to redevelopment. I'm kind of holding my breath on that to see how everything else would shake out with the budget with those larger expenses that we do need to make appropriations for. Garwood is a growing municipality, and we need to keep up with what's going on all around us. So in order to be able to do that, there are certain obligations that are financial that we need to meet. And I always tell everybody, if I were queen, things would be a whole lot different, but I'm not. So people think I am. So with that said, just again, thank you, and we'll start with Council President Palmer. If you have any questions you'd like to answer.
If I could real quick. I would just want to say thank you, Mayor, for those kind words, and I also want to tell Councilman Martin, I think you underestimated yourself there in your speech, but you know, you were definitely a contributing member of this committee, and we do appreciate all that you did as well. I know we had quite a few 4-hour meetings, and you received my calls, you know, weekends, nights, all over the place. So, you know, a lot of hard work was put in by this committee. I thank you both.
Okay, well, I too want to thank the committee. You know, I didn't speak to the other two members of the committee as much as at all, really. I spoke to Councilwoman Tedisco, and I will say every time I spoke to her, she was either on her way to a budget meeting or from a budget meeting, and I couldn't believe how many meetings there were. So sometimes she could answer some questions without even having the sheets in front of her, didn't have to open them. I mean, she knows these 55 worksheets. She can answer that question without even looking at it. So I believe she slept with this under her pillow.
Pretty much.
I think it is. So thank you for that and all your hard work. So with that being said, I just want to ask one question off the top of my head, because I know this is going to be asked later, but when you said that the tax levy increase was 1.21%, I know that last year when we talked about this, there was items that, because we have to stay under 2%, correct? And I know that there's items that fall in that 2%, and then there's items that are outside that 2%. So some people call it a, you know, or will say that we didn't have a true 2% cap. So is this 1.21% all inclusive with everything that can go in it and the things that can fall outside the 2%?
Yes, this is the total tax levy percentage, correct?
So it's a true.
Yes, so it includes health insurance, for example, and pension that are often the main two that are outside of the state's 2% cap that they put on municipal budgets.
So then that is absolutely outstanding and fantastic, and even though you did not make any promises in the beginning of the year as you were asked to do, you did stay under 2%, well under 2%. That's fantastic. So thank the committee for that. Are we getting into questions right now,
Yes,
or are we
we
gonna have,
We can, I think we can jump right into questions if, you know, bring up a page number, if that's how
Okay.
you'd like to approach it, and
that's how I
we can
have
take it
it.
from there.
Page numbers, you did mention in your, opening comments about the assessments of, the increase of appraisal fees. Page 6, was 10,500. What are those increases exactly about?
All right. This is based on our current appeals, and this was a recommendation by Mr. Renaud, our attorney. And originally, he recommended an increase of $5,150. Then he later amended it with an email he sent to us on the 24th of February, where he recommended it actually be a $10,150 increase. So that's what that is, based on our current appeals, basically.
So when, I don't know the appeals process, when people, oh, so this is people that win appeals? No?
No,
What is this?
no, this
What
is
is
when
this
they go
one?
to the tax court.
Yeah, when they try to fight appeals, they have to have appraisals done, you know, for when they go to court, and that's the covered with appraisal fee. So he anticipates, having to use that in the upcoming year, based on the outstanding appeal.
Okay. All right, thank you. On page 7 for buildings and grounds, and I'm not going page by page, right?
Okay.
Page 7 on buildings and grounds, that there was an increase over last year Am I right on that?
It
Or
was,
correct?
it's actually a decrease on our adopted budget. But
Right.
then if you look over in the next column where it says modified budget, that means that when it went from 85,000 roughly to 80,000, that $5,000 was actually transferred out of buildings and grounds and into streets and roads to offset overage.
Okay, you know what, I was looking at the increase, I guess on this one, I was looking at the wrong column, on paid or charged. It's an increase of $13,000 that was actually paid or charged, not from the adopted budget.
Right, that's correct.
Okay,
So in general, it's down 2% from last year's adopted budget,
all right.
for about $1,700.
Okay, and then on,
Don't mind, can I add
Yep.
something?
Go ahead.
I would just like to add to this particular page, because this is one that it's going down 2%, which is wonderful, but when you look at it, like Council President Palmer was, I think, alluding to there a little bit, there was a difference between what was budgeted last year and what was actually paid out, and that was approximately $10,000. So it's great to cut 2%. I really would have liked to cut more here, but one of the reasons we put the brakes on for that idea was we received an unexpected bill for $9,300 that's getting charged out of this department for a road in the borough that essentially collapsed. I mean, is the right way to put it, it's basically collapsed. So given, and that was Maple Street, so given that was about $10,000 for that. If you add that on to where it was last year, we're right in line, we feel. And so that's why, we would have liked to cut this more, but given that unexpected, pretty hefty charge of $9,300, we've decided that this is where we feel comfortable leaving it.
okay. And then on page 15, which I understand is the planning board, I just want to make a comment. I understand the increase, and I'm glad that we're putting the money into the planning board for the redevelopment of the study for the Casal and the planning board, the paper board. I'm happy to see that money go in there. I think it's about time that we do these projects. We need it for the redevelopment of our town, and the studies, and I'm actually happy about that. Just have a question. The legal fees went up. Is that because of these?
Sorry, excuse me.
Pages don't line up with what
Pages
you
don't
have.
agree with the information you're giving us.
No, we were using worksheets up here, and you're seeing the budget document that just has totals on it. Council's using a different document. You have to go by the title, which would be buildings and grounds.
I understand that part, I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
So that they can maybe follow along as we talk about department titles.
No, those aren't, these are deliberative.
Just a minute, what we're trying to do is find the corresponding page number so you can follow along with the bottom line totals. Thanks for bringing that up. And then I'll answer the council president's question. They're getting the page number of
Sheet
the
14.
ordinance.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. All right, so with,
Right, so what I'm asking
Never mind, I got it.
I'm asking specifically is that
she's good.
last year we hadn't budgeted any legal fees, and now,
Right, what's actually happening there is, I'm not sure, because it's an employee situation, how much I should say to this, speak to this, I mean, I understand, but, Tina, how,
What are
do
we
you,
talking about, I'm sorry?
the attorney fees for the planning board, do you want to go into why we're doing that? Can I go into that?
He's no longer an employee,
Right.
has to switch
Yeah.
salaries and wages.
Okay.
Maybe,
I didn't know about that.
Right, essentially, the planning board attorney is being switched from an employee to one that
well,
will
the
receive a
planning board attorney has submitted his resignation as an employee of the Borough of Garwood. We will now prepare proposals to seek legal counsel to service the planning board. Whether or not it will be the same man is determined by the proposal submitted and the selection made by the planning board. So it's not like he's switching, he's resigning, he doesn't want to be an employee anymore. Now your attorney will be treated almost the same way your attorney is treated, paid, submit you a bill for work as he does it. So that's what's going to happen with the planning board attorney. And
Okay.
it's already underway, he's already submitted his letter. And I've already begun to prepare the request for proposals, but I'm working under the guidance of the planning board, not the mayor.
Okay.
Mayor, I'm not sure how you want to do this. Now, I have questions on the same page. You want to stick to that page, or just let Ann finish?
I would just like to let in,
Okay, that's
so
fine.
everybody can get their, because your question might be answered along the way as well.
Understood.
Okay, and then on page 29.
What's the subject, Ann, so I can-
Utilities.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess we should be happy about that. I'm just wondering, our utilities are going down? I mean, since when do utilities go down? Mine don't.
That, well, I'll let the electrician answer that one.
I mean, one good thing is when we retrofitted the lighting throughout the borough, that was a huge savings right there.
Oh, it's nice to see that.
So this is the energy efficiency.
So we're actually
Through the
seeing
lighting.
it.
Yeah, it's,
Great.
They're down about $14,000. Wow.
And is that true also, is that true also for page 31 on gas? That has increased too.
Gas, not necessarily from that, I think that's really just based on the prices, is that correct?
Really?
Well,
Gas
every year I
and
do
oil,
a gas
don't know what that
analysis,
was.
because it's hard to tell what gas is gonna cost, such a fluctuating market. But it seems pretty stable, so we did our analysis, and, I mean, you could be afraid and put more money in there, but unless gas spikes, you should be okay. But you
Okay.
don't know if that's gonna happen, so if that happens, it's happened before, and it could happen.
Okay.
And that's why we didn't cut it exactly back to what we spent the prior year.
Right.
That's the rationale behind it.
And page 38, the PERS contribution. But there's an increase there. And do we know why that?
That is a bill that we can estimate that, or is that exact to the dollar? That one's exact to the dollar, so that's what we're told we need
It's
to.
paid every April, it's the employer portion of the pension fund. PERS stands for public employees, and on the next page is the PF, it's the police and fire. It's the state pension system, and it's the annual contribution, we receive a bill and due April 1st.
Okay, so that's an exact bill, so we'll know that every budget. Okay. And then, I'm almost done, I swear.
Perfectly okay.
I have more.
No rush.
That's okay.
I have more, Lord help us all. Page 39, police and fire. There's actually a decrease.
Right, this is the pension for the police, and the state calculates this bill as well, and our rate actually went down.
This is this is pension, it says
Yes.
police and fire system.
Yes, and actually, Councilman Mearstead and I had a discussion about the title for that, and I briefly spoke to Sandy about that today, and it seems like maybe we can change the title a bit for next year, right?
Yes, I believe
It's already
it's
changed.
It is.
These worksheets are drawn from our own computer system, and honestly, it was named that long before I started working here. So I just went in there today and added the word retirement before the word system.
That would be helpful.
I did it already,
Okay,
it's done,
good,
and
thank
next
you.
year, when it draws it out, it'll have the word. Yeah, see, it's
So-
written on mine. It's done already, but it's just, I wasn't gonna change these documents and print them all over again.
No,
For one word, but it is already
Okay.
done.
Oh, it is, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Already done.
And so this is the pension for the police, like I said, the state calculates the bill, so our rate is down, which nets out to be a decrease of $40,850. So that really worked in our favor, right there.
Okay, we're gonna discuss LoSAP separately, right?
Yes, I figured we could hold that until the end and have
And then
a
my-
discussion amongst all of us.
Okay, so my last comment is page 49, and that's capital improvements fund. I'm glad to see that you put $15,000 in there. Last year, we put $15,000, so I guess I agree that we should every year put money into capital improvements. My question is how much is in there? If this should pass, how much is in there total?
Total, Sandy, do you have the exact number?
I think actually more is.
$223,000, December 31st.
So that would be cash for capital items.
Okay, that's,
Mhm.
I'm just glad that you're putting money into capital items, I like to see that, thank you. Okay, that's all for my questions.
I'll go to, Councilman Porcello, you have any comments you want to make, or you want to just wait?
I've looked at this budget enough, I don't really have any comments. Other than the
No
fact
more
that
questions?
I'm really glad to see that, all of the hard work and, the end result of it, is fantastic. So I just leave it up to everybody else.
And for those of you who aren't actually looking at a copy of the budget, there's a lot of items that stayed flat.
Yes, a lot of departments.
A lot of departments stayed flat, and other things decreased, like the surprise on utilities, which was,
That is reflected on the document they have, so.
no, I realize that. But for those who don't have a document, who aren't looking at it. All right, we'll go down to my left. Councilman Neerstadt.
I accede to Jim, I think he's got some earlier.
Okay, Councilman Sebastian. I was going over.
I take that back.
Take that, Mike.
Take that back.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I also appreciate all the hard work that we've done. And again, I don't mean to come off negative. The one thing I do want to just state preface my comments with. A good friend of mine moved off my block a couple weeks ago. Second generation Garwood resident, saw the moving truck in front of his house. He lost his job. He has $9,300 a year in taxes he's got to pay on his house, on unemployment. That's tough. I don't even think he had a mortgage. He said he couldn't afford the taxes. Second generation, listed his house in the 3s. The last listing I saw on his house was $279. Big thing, big gating item, the brokers told him, taxes are too high. This has real life consequences. For most Americans, their home is their biggest asset. And I hate to see people chased out of our borough. So we make real decisions on real people's lives. Forgive me if I don't launch into all the congratulations, but that's those things just know I have to run over these things. So thank you. A couple of things. You mentioned all the increases. Minus $32K on the pension.
Jim, can I just ask you a
It's a good
question
one.
on that, because you made reference to that once before.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you, if this gentleman, you're saying he lost his job so he can't afford the taxes in Garwood.
Actually, I
If
don't
he
know.
lost his job,
Is that appropriate? Can I just go? Can I just finish with my question?
Excuse me.
I'm just asking you a question on that comment.
Yeah.
Where would he be able to afford to live then?
No job.
I don't know. I'm just bringing up for the property owners in town. I'm just trying to make a statement for them. He's gone. and-
But I don't know that one thing has to do with the other.
Maybe, then
I would really,
I'll let you
Okay.
explain to him how he can't live here anymore. Maybe he can't live in New Jersey. A lot of people are making that choice too. So I'm just making a statement on behalf of the property owners. Minus $32K on the pension debt. I'm surprised you mentioned that. Go Chris Christie and the Democrat legislature. This was part of the 2010 reforms. I want to accentuate the positive. Thank God for that. We would have really eaten it. And it's interesting. You cherry pick the things in the budget, generally based on your political persuasions. But I really wanted to highlight that. The other thing I spoke to Sandy about today, and thank you so much for all your time. It was a very interesting conversation. Was our employee health care contributions have doubled, almost from about $60,000 to about $115,000. Again, even with that, we still have this health care increase. So that's a big increase that we got. Again, we dodged another bullet, and we got to remember our employees are picking up the tab for that. I like to have that front and center, because people need to know our employees are bearing that expense, but they also need to know the result of the reforms in Trenton. And I think that this was, one of the big coups that we got from that. The other thing is, and then just one more macro question. $25,000 in debt. Is that in addition to what's on our sheets?
No.
No, that's
No.
reflected in here?
You have the final number from debt service.
Okay.
But if you look at that page, if you follow our columns, because what we did this year was a little different, we wanted to show you how each step of the way in the budget, more cuts are made or sometimes more increases are made as new knowledge is brought upon us. So that was one of them. And it was just a change that we were told about at that point, so we needed to reflect that.
Okay, so you were just mentioning that,
Right,
but that is
right,
reflected.
right,
Okay.
and that's why I mentioned it as it was one of those midway increases that obviously you didn't expect necessarily in the beginning of the process, but halfway through you realize that by tonight it's in there though.
Yeah, if it's gonna come, it's gonna come whenever it does.
Exactly, so
Exactly.
better to know than not know, right?
Yeah, along the lines of just what Mr. Lombardo was saying, and just some of the finance committee reports. In prior years, we did mention when the healthcare increase came in and when the pension contribution came in. I would really like to get more information out to the public. I'd like to get these sheets out to the council earlier. I'd also like to get these out to the public. The more information, the better. The other thing I bring up, and this is my fourth year bringing it up, Citizens Advisory Board. I would love to get people who have other experience in this town, former council persons, business owners, homemakers. I want to see, there are people, Ann Palmer looks at this thing so differently than I do and brings up valid questions. Bill Nearstadt's going to come at this from a different angle. If you multiply those people on here, you're going to get more views. And I would just love to get more citizen participation, more information out there.
Well, why don't you take it on, Jim? Why don't you take that as a project? Why don't you do it? You like it so much, do it.
Okay,
One specific comment I have.
any
on here.
further
Yeah, I got
comments?
another.
Yeah, I'd like to know.
Okay. Page 8, you got the police budget. This has been a bugaboo of mine for a while now, and I got my old budget sheets out, which go back to 2009. The other expenses for the police, first thing I want to say is I'm very, very happy that we are hiring another cop. I think it's a travesty that the one thing we cut in service was law enforcement. I don't understand that. And maybe that's why I'm a loggerhead oftentimes with this mayor and council. I don't share the same priorities. Law enforcement to me is first. It's a Mars Venus thing maybe, but to me, cops come first, everything else lines up. So I just want to say, thank God for that. Why do we consistently over budget in the operating expenses? Going back to 2009,
Yeah.
we really don't spend anywhere near that 100 grand. And it seems to me we could very easily take 10, 15, or even $20,000 out of that line item. Again, it's one of these things that I think kind of lurks there in surplus. And I would really rather just have the line items express the spending. I voted wholeheartedly for the SUVs because, they came out of the operating expenses. It's a line item here, and instead of doing it over 2 years, did it over 3 years. That all makes sense to me. That's fine, but this thing, I don't understand why we consistently over budget for this, and they come in less.
I actually have an answer to that I'd like to
Okay.
share with you, because I asked myself the same question. And I especially asked it to our chief of police when he originally asked for an increase of $4,000 to his operating budget. And so I said, you're asking me for 4, but you're really coming in consistently less. And he really enlightened me with this, I have to say. He said, we are an emergency department. Because the budget is tight, around, Tina, you can probably tell me, what's that month that generally in the fall, you tell the department heads, look, we're winding down on the year.
I do that like end of October, beginning of November.
Okay, so they'll get a memo that says, please be cautious of your spending as we're winding down in the year. And so what he told me is he generally puts on the brakes as much as he can because he does not want to spend the full boat, because if emergency situations come in, he wants to have the money there. So that's his explanation to me. So yes, there may be a bit of a buffer here, but at the same time, I would hate to see us cut it so tight that he does get in a jam, and they are an emergency department, so I would like them to be able to take care of what they need to take care of.
But it just seems
that,
to me,
so-
just, consistently, just year after year, going ahead and having that
But-
over budgeted, I would just much rather have, and I hear that argument, and I don't doubt the sincerity of what.
Right. I do have more to add, but.
But on one thing, I thought you were done. But on one thing, just so you know, when banks put out projections as to gross domestic product and things like that, they always do a little bump in the fourth quarter, because governments go ahead and hurry up and spend their budgets, because they go, oh geez, we're going to spend 50% of our budget, let's put the pedal to the metal. So I would totally believe that. I believe that was told to you in sincerity. In reality, some other things happen. Oh geez, if we don't spend that, if we don't spend our budget, we ain't getting the same amount next year.
I would just also like to add, the chief provided us with a breakdown of his police budget, looks like this, where he went through all of his line items in the operating budget there, and, you know, he gave us quite a number of reasons justifying the levels. For example, let's see here. He had some increases because he needed an upgrade in software, things related to guns, ammunition prices are higher.
I guess they
There's a couple things. The new officer, equipping him, more calls, possibly because of the senior housing, and we are seeing calls go up generally. And then let's see, we also have a state DOT mandated replacement program for signs. So I have to say, the chief was very thorough in explaining this to us. Even tires, increased cost of the product, rubber's going up in price, therefore he would like, you know, a higher budget there. I hear what you're saying, but we were thorough in definitely checking that out, so.
I don't know if this is the question that Ann was asking, or Ann was asking something totally different. Page 25, our page 25, the legal budget, there's an increase of $20,000, and I'm just trying to figure out what is behind that.
Sure.
I mean, apparently, I would imagine we're going to a PBA negotiating year, right?
Right, so that takes about half, that is half,
That's
the
half, that's-
20,000. We did budget 10,000 for that. And then we also, based on last year's bills, and based on the recommendation from our borough attorney, that's where we felt legal fees should truly be budgeted. Last year it was 35, this year we did bump it up to 45, which was 5,000 less than the requested 50,000. So it's one of those areas that's, you know, I mean, it's disappointing to see it go up, but given the amount of work done, I guess, charge for it, and that's basically just paying our bills and not ignoring that the cost is going up.
Okay. There's, again, just consistently, we've over budgeted in this item, especially going back in 2012, 2013, and we're budgeting again. I would just ask, you know, is this a main objection of mine? No, but let's just keep in mind, again, would I expect the police chief to defend his budget? Yes. Would I expect Mr. Renaud to give a good faith estimate? Yeah, but I think that's where we're supposed to make the tough calls. And I just think if this comes in again substantially under, we might want to take a look at budgeting this a little closer to what we.
I would agree with that, and, you know, like I said, we did take it down 5,000 from the suggested, so we did not take the suggested at 100% face value, which I think we did right by.
Just bear with me, Mayor. Gasoline, I just want to make a comment on that. I think you've taken the prudent course of action. I think this is page 31. I just wanted to say, I think what you did was correct. You can get completely surprised by a spike on this, and you can get completely pleasantly surprised by a drop on this. And you took last year and you bumped it up by about, what, 10% or something? And I think that's really done it the best. I don't see, I think that that's a prudent course without padding it, or without being, I think,
Right.
reckless. Okay, there's another thing, and Sandy, I asked you for this information last year, I think it was, on the first aid fees and on the prosecutor. I'll pair this up, this is page 34, I'm sorry. I'll put this of a piece with things like LoSAP. I think with all the other skyrocketing expenses that we have, the union contracts and things like that, healthcare increases, things like this get neglected. And I'd asked Sandy when the last time was we increased this, and it was a while ago. I know it was. And I could find that information, I won't make you go get that again. Same thing with the prosecutor's salary. Disclosure, I'm friends with the prosecutor, and he's chair of the Cranford Republicans. But it was something I was definitely taking a look at before that, with full disclosure on that. I tend to think things like that kind of get lost in the shuffle, and that's why you see like LoSAP, 38% increase, just to bring it up to, you know, because you go ahead and there's no pressure coming from those areas. So I would just urge you, if not in this budget, and I guess this goes to all of us, because we don't know who's going to get finance committee next year, take a look at items like this. I think these tend to get, neglected. Yeah, state unemployment insurance, page 40. Sandy will recall, I called today trying to be very optimistic, and she shot me down. I said, hey, it's great, this has gone down, maybe the crossing guards are not filing unemployment every year, and she disabused me of that notion very quickly. We gotta do something about that. We gotta do something about that. I wanna find out where the assembly is on this, on making this illegal for seasonal workers to file unemployment every year. Whether we save $1,000, $10,000, or $5, it's immoral. It's not right. And I just think it's wrong when you got people that are going to work every day, and they see people who get a seasonal job, whether you like it or not, you don't have to take it, file unemployment every year. We have to do something about that. If there's a novel approach that we can do, we have to do something locally, and I'd like us to urge our state legislators to do something about that. But it's just wrong. File unemployment every summer on a seasonal job, you're not unemployed. I'm sorry.
Jim, as a small business owner, I have workers now for 6 years that apply for unemployment on a seasonal basis. It's perfectly legal according to New Jersey state law. There is nothing in the legislature right now to countervene that.
Anything else, Councilman?
Yes, and then, this was another thing. Page 50, debt. If there's a consistent theme that's gone on here, is the increase in debt that this borough is undertaking. I got out my budget sheets from 2009. As recently as 2009, our total debt service numbers were $150,000. This year, we're gonna have $300,000 in debt service. I called the CFO today, and she informed me that this does not include the approximately $570,000 of Green Acres grants that we still haven't drawn down yet, that are not reflected in here. We've undertaken a massive increase in debt in this borough, and I think the citizens need to be aware of that. So we're at double the payments and climbing. And I just think that that's unfortunate. That's a self-inflicted one. So I just wanted to go ahead and note that. And, oh yeah, this other thing, on page 53, and again, I see this more as a kind of like a canary in the coal mine type thing. Are we experiencing higher delinquency rates from our taxpayers?
You're looking at the reserve for uncollected?
Yeah.
Yes, I would say our delinquency, or our collection rate has dropped over the years, and that's why I think you guys also have that resolution to do 3-year average. And as the collection rate drops, you have to appropriate more for this. So the short answer is yes.
Because I always see that as an indication of kind of how the borough is doing. I mean, again, it's fractional. I mean, I remember it being 380, I mean, not, what I'm talking about, but I think the trend shows you. I mean, whenever you have these rates, I mean, of course, the flip side of it is 98-point-something% of people paying their taxes, right? But I think it shows you at the margins kind of how the taxpayers do. So I always sort of, when I'm very disappointed to see these numbers go up, not because there's anything we can do about it financially, but because I think it just kind of shows what may be going on in our community.
Could I ask a follow-up question to that, to our CFO? I know you do speak with CFOs of other towns, and do you feel how is Garwood doing with delinquent taxes compared to maybe other towns in Union County or other towns in the state? Where do you see us with that? And maybe Warren, you can add to this as well. I know you work with other, probably a better question.
Yeah, you're right in the average. I mean, everyone around you is 98, 97 and a half. I mean, you know what's happened too with this though, I mean, your reserve is based on county and school taxes, not just your own. So where you're only up 1.2% on your taxes, if county and school go up, your reserve, you're bearing the brunt of the whole thing. So that's why that appropriation is going up. You have no choice, you have to put it in there. So if school and county go through the roof, I mean, you're forced to provide for the reserve for uncollected taxes for those levies also. That's part of it also. but you're somewhere in the average. I mean, it was a little higher a couple of years ago, 97.46, 97.55, not too much difference. It's 97.38. I mean, it did drop, but not, you know,
Statistically.
it's not like it's a percentage point or half percentage point, it's got, a couple tenths of pennies here.
And then just, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I know you were gonna give a presentation, I talked at length with the CFO about this today, and again, thanks for your time, on this cap, budget cap back. And I guess I'm just a little bit, I don't understand why it is we need it. I just want to preface this, that, I'm very willing to be educated on this. I thought Mayor Petracchi, this was one of your great achievements. I thought we had come to a bipartisan consensus on this. Republicans and Democrats came together, with you breaking the tie the last 2 years, I believe, to get rid of the cap bank, and we got it down to 0. My preference is to keep it that way, and I fail to understand with a referendum available why we need to have a cap bank.
Well,
Should we get into that now, or should that be?
That was why I prefaced.
Right, I know you did, and that's why you're bringing up a great question, and we definitely do intend to spend some considerable time, I would hope, on this, but perhaps at the end of the meeting with the other couple items I mentioned, if that's okay.
Yes.
All right.
Fine, I just wanted to
Okay.
bring that up there.
All
But
right,
anyway,
thank
I thank you very much for the information. And 1.21%, hey, it's better than 3.3. I like it.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, my thanks go a little elsewhere. Last night I was at the Plainfield train station talking to Jim at 10. I got home and Sarah and I spent the next hour and a half till 10 after midnight on the phone. So I want to thank you for that time. I wasn't able to attend last year's budget session, so because of conflict, I was able to work it out this year, and so I want to thank Sarah for answering questions on almost every page, and you'll be happy to know I'm probably going down to about 15 pages, so hopefully it won't be too bad. Okay, start on page 10. Is there any way to tell within the overtime payments for DPW workers, how much of that's related to snow, how much of it's not? Because obviously there's a big increase there from about 15,000 to, a proposed budget of 35.
I actually do have that information, but I think I have it on a different page. Just give me a sec.
Sure.
And also, Sandy, if you just make sure how much we've spent as of, I think it was Valentine's Day, we had the number of how much overtime is spent this year so far. That would be valuable.
You just got to think how you thought 4 hours ago.
Yeah. All right, in 2011, we spent $16,355 on snow. In 2012, it was $2,540. And then in 2013, $95.25. And as of February 19th, we've already spent $24,600 this year. So it's significantly more than in the past. So, and that is strictly in the overtime line, not the general salary line.
Right. Wow. So yeah, obviously you're just being conservative, and I don't want to use that word too often. 35,000. Should be more than enough, right?
Maybe we need
It was,
right, for us, so, yeah.
Yeah, I guess we're kind
That
of
was
just
worked out that
keeping
year,
fingers
but.
crossed, right?
I know.
Okay. 14, Shade Tree Commission, just a question. The general maintenance that's listed there, the 7,500, now it's 18,000. That is money to go where? Where's that 18,000 go?
That would be to have our general maintenance of trees in the borough taken care of by an outside company. And we are in the process, well, really Tina's in the process of preparing information on that. And have you actually put out that request yet or no
I'm
for proposals?
a couple days away from finishing writing a bid specification, because for the first time I'm gonna go out formal bid on shade tree, where we used to always get quotes. But what I'm writing is a document that we will hire a contractor through a contract, and this bid spec says something like, you know, you bid how much is it to take down a tree of this caliber, or trim a tree of this caliber. So, in other words, an open-ended thing, like, they'll bid the amounts, and then, it's not like the AFC where they bid $2.7 million. They'll bid the amount for each tree, and then we will decide after that, okay, I'll send them out and I'll say, okay, take this tree down, we know how much it's gonna cost. Once we spend our $18,000, that's why we gotta still be particular about what tree work we're doing, we have to stop. So we'll always leave a little cushion in there in case we get an emergency throughout the course of the year. But what it does is, it gives us the ability to deal with trees more efficiently. Now how we deal with them is, you know, we evaluate them and we log them for what needs to be done, but we also deal with complaints from residents. And it takes a long time for a resident to have a tree addressed, because we only do it once a year, and it's a process getting quotes. You know, I gotta put the list together, and I get the quotes, and then I gotta do a contract, an award, and then I send the guy out all at once to do the work. So if you make a complaint, sometimes you're waiting a long time. This way, once I secure the contract and the guy's on board, when the company's on board, once a month I will say to them, okay, go out and take care of these 3 trees or these 4 trees. So residents aren't waiting a year or more to have a tree dealt with. Also, well, part of the contract will be, divide the town up into 6
Section?
yes, that are, match the tree, the leaf, the way I divide up the leaf. And also in the contract, they will have to go out and they will bid it to go up and down those sections and just elevate the low trees, where we don't do that now. You know, the street department can do that, but they're years behind because they don't have the time. They're literally about 3 years behind, because I do two lists. One contract out list, one list that the guys can do. Based on when I evaluate the tree, I can decide if they have the ability to do it. The ability to do it is that the bucket truck can't be a high tree, and it can't have any wires near it at all, because they're not qualified to, they're not trained to go cut trees in wires. It's dangerous, and you have to have a certain certification for that. So once it's evaluated, it goes into these 2 categories. The tree work for the street department is literally 2 or 3 years behind. In other words, those people that are getting their work done by our own department have been waiting that long. It'll eliminate that, because they just don't have the time. They don't have the manpower to go up and down the streets all summer long when those trees are growing and hitting your head when you're walking. They try, and they get started, they do 2 or 3 streets, and it never gets done. So hopefully with a specification and a job like this, it will eliminate those problems, which is my goal, to not have a backlog of tree work. And does anybody else have a question there?
You answered far more than I was. No, I appreciate all that. Just one of the things I'd like to advise the council on is, I don't know if we'll be able to do it this year, but one of the awards that we could get is something called Tree City USA. It's put out by the National Arbor Day Foundation. And we haven't qualified the past number of years. One of the requirements is you spend $2 per capita for trees and other requirements. So I'm going to try to push this year at least to see if we can get started. Maybe for next year we can actually get that certification. Page 15. Planning board, a couple of questions. First off, I understand the payroll total, but when you get down to the bottom, you have the zoning officer enforcement within the planning board line. Since the zoning officer does not report to the planning board, why is the zoning officer within the planning board page?
Shall I answer that?
Sure.
Councilman, you're absolutely right. He doesn't answer to the planning board. Years ago, somehow, I can't recall how, it was switched to that, since it falls in zoning, it was switched to that department. But you are correct. It shouldn't be there. He doesn't answer to the board. Neither should, the other part of the job, which is what Mr. Benegger serves, also technically doesn't answer to the board. He's paid out of.
Yeah, that one you could argue though,
Right.
you know.
So, but we do have him in that part of the budget,
Yes.
Mr. DiStefano. So we would have to pull it out and put it in administration. It's just a technical.
Yeah. If
matter.
that's not too difficult, can that be done?
It's not difficult at all.
I'm perfectly fine with
Okay.
that. I know we
Alright.
spoke about it.
Yeah, Sandy wants just a reclass where she charges his salary, which you can start doing that tomorrow. We can adjust it. Yeah.
You can do it Monday if you'd like.
Thank you.
I don't know what
Friday.
a stern taskmaster she is, but. Okay, the attorney, Ann brought up the attorney before, and I understand the transition from salary employee to consultant. But the salary is also, the total, shouldn't use the word salary, the total amount is also doubling, up to 15,000. Where did that number come from?
7,500.
Well,
No, so you
I'll-
gotta take it from the top two.
Right, it's,
7,500 up top and it's 7,500 up bottom.
Right, essentially there's 7,500 within payroll and there's 7,500 within other expenses.
Right.
So essentially, the total number of roughly 15,000 was given to us by the planning board at our department head meeting. That's what they recommended we put for that position. And I know we spoke about it a little last night, but
Yeah.
I think this is, perfect venue to talk about it as well, but,
I do have something to add to that.
yeah, sure, please add.
Well, so we talked earlier about the resignation of the attorney, and that's what this is related to. Well, working with the planning board, I started to write the request for proposals for that, and I did obviously some research, and I did draft a letter for the planning board that asks questions about that request for proposals, because you can determine such things in the request, like a retainer, which the retainer, let's say, I'm just making up numbers, $2,000, that would, and in that retainer, that would consist of coming to meetings or whatever it would consist of. So you can, through the request proposals, control some of this. You also can put in there the hourly rate that you'll pay for this. But because it's gonna be the first year, you won't really know how much it's gonna cost. I don't know how much work this attorney's gonna do for the planning board. Maybe you might know that, but it's an hourly thing, and it's based on that. So I did a little calculation based on his salary and just the idea of him coming to meetings, and I figured you have about 18 meetings a year, because you
Did
cancel
the
some.
same thing, right?
Yeah, so when I did that math, his hourly rate was, just for coming to meetings, was excessive, right?
Almost,
So-
about $275 an hour.
Right, this letter that I drafted to the planning board today, that I'm just about finishing, asks them these kinds of things. Now, how do you want me to write this RFP? Do you want me to put a retainer in it, and if you do that, you would say, okay, how much retainer for coming to meetings, or you can let the person submitting dictating it. So you can control this number a little bit, this 15,000. But, like I said, because it's the first year, I don't know how much work, it's not for litigation.
That's my next question.
No.
Where's the litigation part?
There is no litigation in there. Say you have a situation that has to be litigated, you would do a separate contract for that, just like we would do with Mr. Renaud.
And where would that money come from?
You'd have to appropriate it. Like, let's say you're,
Council would have to appropriate it separately.
yes, say you presented with,
And where would that come from?
I don't know, okay, I don't know. But I guess these people would know, if you do some kind of emergency.
Yeah, I didn't mean to look at you, I should have looked this
If
way.
the money's not in the budget, you have to have an emergency.
Right, So,
Would it have to be emergency?
well, if you're being
I
sued.
mean, because you only could transfer the last 2
Litigation.
months of the year, so it depends when it fell. If it fell like in July and August, you couldn't transfer, so you'd have to have an emergency. If it fell in November, December, if there was money that was
Transfer.
not utilized in other appropriations, you probably could transfer to legal. And then,
And would that emergency still be within the 214 budget?
no, we pushed to
To 250.
raise it to 15.
You know, I must say, that, you know, litigation is always pending what the litigation is, and depending on what it was, could possibly be managed by your insurance carrier, so, you know, it would be depending on what the board was being sued for, whether or not you would have to hire your own counsel, or, now,
Let's
I'm
hope
gonna
we,
knock on
let's
something,
hope we
because
don't hire our
we
own
haven't
counsel.
really had these kind of issues here in Garwood, so, but you know, you can keep that at where it is because it's the first year, and,
Yeah.
you know, the finance chair has already set this budget up, and it's a good budget, but it would be better to gauge it next year after you see what
I
happens.
agree.
I
with that.
agree, yeah, that's, or, I think we have to discuss that at the planning board, because there's a lot of factors there. All right, and the last thing, just an aside, I understand the redevelopment plan for the paperboard is at 25. Basically, it's based upon one proposal we received. I really think that could be reduced. If we had to pay $25,000 for a redevelopment plan for the paperboard, that's a lot of money. So, I mean, I really think, probably reduce to 15, but to cover ourselves, we could reduce it to 20. And I don't think that's really a concern at all.
Mhm.
So,
Right, I like that, I like the idea, definitely. I mean, and I know we talked about this last night, but I just want to bring it up now as well. You know, when the planning board presented us with this, I really would not want to cut it where it would hurt them
Right.
doing what they need to get done. Obviously, that we support. However, if it truly can get cut, that's something that I think the finance committee will be in touch with Tina about, and
Right.
I'm hoping that come introduction night, we can offer that.
That sounds good, because a big part of the redevelopment plan is going to be COA, and we have COA, you know, listed separately. So
Right.
basically, what you're talking about is doing, now we'll get all technical about it, but, you know, use in bulk regs, and it's one tract, it's one piece of property. So if we're paying $25,000,
Right.
I think we need to put out a second RFP. Okay, 20, page 20, just a comment, no problem with the budget, but I hope to see something out of that committee this year.
What committee was,
EOM, or OEM,
Oh.
Office of Emergency Management.
I don't have a sheet in front of me.
22, Sarah and I did talk about this a little bit. but
Let's just make sure that the audience
Audience,
is
sure.
on the same
Oh.
page too, because I know we're around page 20 or page 22 now for us, but where's that for the audience? Just, I don't think they've had an update in a
What
while.
did you say was
Contingent.
Contingent, it's called contingent.
Right, 22.
No, now I'm on 22.
Contingent, right?
Contingent.
Right. I just felt like we strayed a little away from letting them know, and,
You strayed a long way away from letting us know.
all right, well,
It was only one page you gave us all night.
Sheet 17.
I can't keep up. By the time I find it on there, they're on the next subject.
I'll stay on them a little longer so that we can tell you where they're at.
17?
Okay.
It's just one number, it's, contingent is just one.
All
I'll
right,
find
we're
it.
good, or you want to find it?
I'll find it. You can start talking, I'll find it.
Just a question, it's only $3,000, I'm not concerned with any amount of money, but, you know, I've never seen an entire line, so to speak, an entire account is called contingent. What is that for? Because we sort of have contingencies in every budget, you're not exactly what you expect to fund. And who has to approve money being spent out of contingency? What criteria is used?
It goes through the same process as any other voucher. You know, it's, the finance committee would approve it at the council meeting. Contingent is a place where you can charge something for which no appropriation was made in the budget. So it's just,
So going back, I didn't think this at the time, could that be where you pay a legal expense for litigation?
No, because you have legal in the budget.
So you couldn't.
If you have a line item in the budget, it's not contingent.
And I'm not cutting hairs here, but, you know, legal doesn't anticipate litigation. I know it's, you know, the same, but it is not the same. Just a question, you couldn't use it? No? Okay.
Did we just talk about it for salt? Though, or no? No, that was something else? Okay. Now, also, I did get a little bit of a lesson on this as well. It used to be much larger years ago, right?
I believe so, I don't have it in front of me.
Right, I was,
It was like 5,000.
okay, so it has been getting smaller. Obviously, you can see some was charged out in the past couple of years. But, you know, it's getting sliced away at.
Okay.
But we'll, you know.
Understood. Just wanted to be explained. 25, this has already been talked about. I assume, I'll leave it at this, part of that increase, which it's really interesting to see 114,000 one year in the budget where on 65 was charged
Legal, we're talking about legal now, just for the.
22. I'm sorry, 25, right.
25.
Right.
Just trying to get the title heading for the,
Okay.
Are they
now-
still
so
on
we-
17?
Nine to 25.
Are you looking at legal now?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't need that. I'm trying to find that page for the public.
Page 13.
That would be paid, yeah, 13. 13 for the public.
Yeah. I'd like to make a suggestion to have some of these put out there so the public can see that and go for next year. It was just interesting to see, 2012, the budget was 114, and we only charged 65. In 2013, we went down to 65, only charged 56. Now we have an increase going up to 84. I understand part of that is through the contract discussions, but I assume part of that is also through the larger lawsuit that looms in front of all of us. Is that correct?
I'll say yes to that.
Okay. So I explained some of the increase.
If I could just comment on that, the 2012 too, if I recall, part of this was also a reserve put away for the PAC lawsuit. We actually, we had a judgment against us, the borough, for, was it related to Oprah? We had it was kind of like a $56,000 or $60,000 judgment that was against us. And it was related to the dismissal of a police officer and an Oprah request made by a citizen activist. He then sued us to reimburse him for certain legal fees, won a judgment at the lower court level, and Mr. Renaud appealed it up and actually got it overturned. So what was put in here was part of that in anticipation of, it's better than, you had a judgment against it.
Right, and that was also upon the recommendation of our attorney at that time.
Right.
That's what,
But that explains that large jump there, which I was
right,
unaware of.
it does.
Okay, thank you. 28, Sarah was explaining this to me last night, but, I love the title. This is the Snow Reserve. Can you explain to me how that works? And is that actually allowed to be carried over?
It is now. We did a resolution at the end of December of 2012 to establish a snow reserve, and it's also recommended by best practices that you have this in place. So we've always been appropriating the 2,500, but if it was unused, it would just lapse. So beginning in 2012, that money was set aside in a separate reserve. So there's 2,500 there. The money from 2013 is still ready to be moved into the reserve, and now we're appropriating an additional 2,500.
And that's simply to be used for?
Anything related to excessive snow. I mean, I guess it could be used for overtime, salt, things like that.
That's interesting. I didn't know what that was, and I found that very interesting. Okay, I'll try to keep going here. 31, just a side comment. The reason the gas is going down is because we're going to see the police out there in a bicycle a lot more.
Can you tell them that?
You may have a career in comedy ahead of you.
No, I don't think so. Lou, page 32, this is the street lighting. I don't know if this falls under streets and roads or under buildings and grounds, but if we can start getting PSC&G to switch to LED on street lights, we can even save more.
Yeah.
Do you know anything on that?
Well, they did make a change a few years ago with the induction lighting that you see out there, those are the green fixtures.
Yeah.
So, there was a reduction in that.
street lights?
Street lighting.
Right, we didn't talk about this one yet, this is
Well,
down
also, let me just
6,000.
comment on that. The chief went to a county meeting today.
15A.
Because they're gonna be doing they're gonna be doing the South Avenue corner all over, so they're probably, I would have to ask him how the meeting went today. But that may include changing those lights, as you suggested.
And that's South Avenue all the way through town?
Well, we went to meeting because it's right here by South and Center. I don't know, I didn't go to the meeting, so I don't know how far down it goes. I can find out from him tomorrow.
Okay.
But the county's gonna be doing road work here and doing improvements, so that may be part of it. I'll look tomorrow and let you know.
That'd be great, because that's something we should look at and save, more money down the road.
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry.
I mean, just to give you an idea, just talk about LED, like this is my trade, but I just put up fixtures today, and they're made by RAP, they're LED fixtures. This one fixture is a 100-watt metal halide lamp, okay? But in LED, it only draws 13 watts. So you get the equivalent light of a 100-watt metal halide lamp, which is, the big white light outside, for the decorative, but it only draws 13 watts. So if they did go to that, this would probably go down even further.
That'd be great. We should push
That's a
it.
good comparison.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Right.
Okay, 34, I just want to second what Jim said. I too think that in terms of the first aid, okay, yeah. If there is some consideration by the finance committee to maybe increase it, I don't think we've given them an increase in quite some time. And as Sarah mentioned right in the mark, we're losing members. We need incentives. Not that anybody's going to join for the pittance that you get, but at least it's something. And so I agree with Jim that we should, look into that. 35, which is dog regulation. Sandy, where does that money go?
Give me 1 sec. I'm
Sure.
just making a note here.
And then a page for that as well.
I'll look for that,
Budget
Sandy.
is 15B. Budget. And the dog regulation, the appropriation you make is to fund the difference between the licenses that are collected, license fees, people pay to register their dog, and the actual cost to run the program.
That program is run by whom?
Well, if they come in here and get the licenses.
I'm not being fresh, but who's they?
Oh, Kathleen. The residents come in.
Okay, so residents come in.
Yeah.
What we said is to run the program. So the program is run by staff.
Yeah,
So why is this pulled out?
pulled out of here.
Why don't we just have a revenue for a dog?
The dog board
License.
fees come out of there.
There's various fees that we have to
Right.
pay. They consist of,
Okay, but you have to pay it. My question is, so who do you pay that to? Who gets this money?
there's a separate account, there's a dog tax account. We appropriate the difference, the 4,600 is moved into there, fees are collected, they're put in there, and between this 4,600 and the fees collected, it averages out to be enough to run the program to.
He's asking who gets paid.
Where's this?
Who are we paying the money out to?
Dog warden gets
Alright,
paid,
dog warden.
licenses get
So
paid.
that's it, is a dog
Yeah,
warden.
you have to buy the dog tags, there's a
Okay.
software maintenance
Is there a
contract.
dog warden part of the Board of Health or somebody separate?
The mayor and council hired the dog warden.
Yeah. Okay. Who's our dog warden?
What's the name?
It's called Animal Control Solutions.
Yes.
Okay, I
It's
got
a
it.
flat fee, and then they also charge if they have to do emergency care, if they have to pick an animal up and house it,
Okay.
or,
So this also takes
Goes
care of
with-
more than dog, and like you said, that's a key thing. If there's problems, they need to
Mhm.
pick something up. We have money for that. I understand. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilman Neersen, if I
Sure.
could go back to first aid just for a minute.
Sure.
To clarify as well, that 9,000 in that line that you saw for first aid, that goes to their department, of which they do as they wish with that money.
Right.
But the LoSAP increase for the actual
that.
members, that's a separate page.
Yes.
So I just want that clarified, for our benefit, but also the public,
Sure.
that you're sort of supporting the first aid, not just in the first aid section, but also in the LoSAP section.
And I appreciate and understand that, you need to work in good surroundings too.
Right, and I agree with that.
I agree. So maybe there's three of us who agree. Maybe. Okay, you took care of page 39, so we'll move on to that. 41, just a side comment, I know Warren, you're sitting here, you may not like what I have to say, but, you know, for the past couple of years, we've only gotten one proposal for the auditors. I really think we need to, you know, push a little bit to get some competition there for future review. Okay. 43, just a side comment. I have to work on this one. It's very disappointing to see that there's actually a projected increase in garbage tonnage expected to be collected. I'm very disappointed at that, which means that the borough is putting out more, it's projected that the borough is putting out more garbage. I hope we're not. And I'll work on making sure it doesn't happen.
If I may, I know you would be the one to lead the charge on that. But that increase of 12,000, is that what you're referring to?
No, the tonnage.
The tonnage, oh, down below, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I
Okay,
mean,
yes.
You're talking about expecting 30 more tons of garbage coming in.
Right, I
That's-
agree.
Well,
Okay,
you
I
know,
just
Councilman,
wanted
that's an
to,
average, I think.
Yeah, well, no, I understand that, but, well, yeah,
That's how I figure it
but
out.
even if it's, you know, but if that's an average, it's still a 30-ton increase. And if we're producing, sorry, residents, but if we're increasing our garbage by 30 tons, I don't know what we're doing.
Increased to 70 units on second round.
I gotta bring it to my house.
I also think when the senior
Families
citizen
coming in.
facility comes online,
I know.
I would expect that that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see, that's a good thought.
right.
That's a good thought.
Since we're on that page, if I could just add the clarification with regards to the $12,000 increase that you see there under sanitation fees, there is an increase in bulk waste, but that is
Right.
very similar to last year, just for clarification for everyone, because that's being increased to twice a year. Now that has to increase, but it's balanced off on the other side of the budget, the revenue side, so there's no impact.
And that's an important factor, that even though it's in the budget here, it's an appropriation, it's really,
Right.
really zero.
Right.
Okay, 45. Just a question, I know I've spoken to Tina about this with the Shade Tree Commission. We are proposing, and I don't know, Sandy, what page this is for everyone. It's Union County Kids Recreation Trust Fund.
Right, but that's not in that
Not in
bill
that?
sheets,
Okay.
because that's a grant,
Okay.
and, it's a,
Right. We anticipate this year, and I'm very grateful to the Finance Committee for putting in money for shade trees this year. There's a grant called Union County, Green Union County, which will get matched what we put in. So should there be should $1,500 be placed in that line for our match of that grant?
there's allegedly a grant, but there isn't a grant right now out there yet. So we can't put money in there. It's in the shade
Okay.
tree budget, the $1,500.
Right, so leave it there.
Right, because there should be a grant, but there isn't right now. So
All right, I understand that.
we need to put it where we, you know,
Well, this might be a silly question, but I understand what you're saying, I truly do. Kids Recreation Trust Fund, is that out there?
yes, that
Oh,
one,
okay.
that grant we got last year, and we're awarded that grant.
But this is for 14, not for 13.
Yes, when you get a grant in the middle of the year, you have to do one of two things, appropriate in next
Gotcha.
year's budget or do a chapter 159. We
Okay.
weren't spending the money, so we
Okay.
appropriate next year.
All right, sounds good. All right, 46, I think you know my relationship with the library. It's very interesting, I want to point out to everyone. Within that budget, okay, whatever the library is, Sandy?
Library. Library on here,
Page 20,
well, sheet 20.
sheet 20 in the others.
All right, it's very interesting, the water, gas, and electric that's on there, that's actually an in-kind fee that the library pays to the school board. You add that together with the 46,000 in-kind fees to the borough, and then you tack on the payroll. You're really talking about the library living on $30,000 a year for all library-related purchases. I think we should be concerned about the future of the library down the road, seriously concerned, and keep that in our discussions, because the appropriations from the state are going down. Assessments are going down, and so keep that in mind, because we may not have a library down the road.
I have to say, I definitely appreciated our conversation about that last night, and it's definitely something that, I mean, who knows if I'll be on finance next year, but You know, it's something that's sort of brewing in my mind as to what should the borough do to maybe help that.
Well, I appreciate the thought, because I know you put a lot of time into it. Thank you. 49, this is capital improvements. Now, we have $15,000 in there, but, and I want to mention first off, Sarah, I thank you very much for pulling together 3 years' worth of capital projections from DPW, police, fire, and the office. I don't know if we've ever had this before, and I appreciate it very much. This is how we plan, and if you look at what's in here for what's being wished, I'll say at this point, for 2014, we've got the salt shed. That's really the only item that's in there. That's for $50,000. What's in the budget proposed is actually 15. Do we have any idea at this point what that 15 would actually be used for?
The 15 would go into our, well, this goes along with the council president's question of earlier.
Right.
What was around 200.
220, but that's 220,000 in cash.
Right.
That we could actually use to bond a heck of a lot more than that, correct?
But we could also use it to pay for something outright as well,
Does
right?
does it make sense more to pay for something outright, or does it make more sense to bond? And don't say it depends.
No, well, on the amount, I mean, you're not gonna bond something for $5,000, use the capital improvement fund in its entirety. If you can go for $1 million and use the down payment, and then go for bonds. It does depend on the amount of the project that you're doing.
So the more,
The bigger the
the bigger the
project.
project, the more
one-
sense it makes to bond.
Yes, if you're doing a small project, well, some municipalities have limits. In other words, any project, say below $10,000 will do for cash. So
Should that then just be in the operating?
what's the capital
Could.
improvement fund?
Capital improvement's not operating.
Yeah, well, it's capital.
Right.
I'm saying, so if you're doing something for capital, it's less than 10,000, it's gonna come out of your capital improvement fund. That's what that's for. Capital items that you're raising in the budget, but then they're gonna come out of capital. That's a
Alright.
5-year useful life.
If you look at, for instance, the fire, okay, you know, 2016, they'd like to have a ladder truck. It's $1 million.
Right.
How much would we have to have within the capital improvement fund in order to bond for $1 million?
You need 5% down.
5%, quickly, 5% of $1 million, 50,000.
50,000.
So I'm not advocating this, but I'm just saying, right now, we actually could start,
Yeah, you have
We actually have
the
enough money in
down
there to
payment,
buy.
yes, absolutely.
I just wanted to add one thing, Warren. Aren't certain bonds exempt from that 5%?
Utility bonds.
DOT?
Yeah.
DOT, okay, so some bonds are exempt from that 5%, but that's the general rule, right?
Yeah, utility bonds are exempt from it. You can't go down Trent and ask for a waiver if you didn't, but if you had a big project, like when the shore towns got hit with Hurricane Sandy, they had to do capital projects, I mean, $30, $40 million to, and you didn't have 5% down, it was just too much. So if you went down to the state, they waived the 5%, they said, go ahead and bond everything. But that's, few and far between, you have to have a special situation to do that. But your normal, things you're talking about here, you would require that 5% cash.
5% also.
all right, so right now, what I'm always interested in is I use the word balancing out, but every year you roughly have the same, okay? Just an aside, Plainfield, we bond about $6 million a year, all right? I'm sorry, the capital improvement program, about $6 million a year. So, and we try to each year have that same amount. Here, we don't really have a expected expenditure each year of the same amount of money. We just kind of, as departments need things, we either pay for it in cash or we put out the bond. Does it make sense to actually have more of a program so that we know each year we're going to bond the same amount?
There's a capital, part of the budget, there's a capital budget of your regular budget that lists the projects you look like you want to do. It has to go out 3 years.
No, I understand
It's not
that.
with
Okay.
this.
Isn't it this paper that was handed out
I
tonight?
don't know. what you're-
No, there's no page in your budget that has
But there's
that.
no projects on it. The page on the budget has no projects on it.
No, that's the worksheet. This is what I'm
I'm
talking about,
sorry,
this
the
document.
budget was handed out tonight.
Yeah, I'm not
Sorry.
sure if it's in this is not a complete document.
It's probably not in this document, it's not done yet. I know what you're looking
Okay.
for. You're looking for a capital plan.
Yeah.
As part of your budget, when the budget's introduced, there'll be a 3-year capital plan attached to that.
All right,
Like
so
what
we'll
project
have
you're
that.
gonna do, how you're gonna
We have to
finance it,
Okay.
what you're gonna do. It's not- you
That-
don't
and
follow
that's what I was looking for, because one of the other pages I have on here is, what are the projects?
Bill, it's a
We'll have
requirement.
that, well, that's why I was
It's a
asking.
state requirement.
Yeah, but we didn't have this until today.
It's not even on that, because that's not the full document.
All right, but we'll have it by the time it gets introduced.
What I handed out tonight is a little bit different as well, because where I could, based on what the department heads told the finance committee, I did try to elaborate on certain items where you won't see that in the budget. The budget, it'll just say, ladder truck, 1 million. It won't get into what maybe it's replacing or something like that. So, not for all of them I added a great amount of detail, but some of them I definitely did. So they're
Right.
just a bit different there.
The other thing, the budget document has the road projects in it.
Right.
And we do road
Right.
projects every year, this,
All right, because one of the things I'm interested in too is continuing on to page 50, because they're related, is when you prepare, I guess, the capital plan, will you indicate to us the payments that we're making each year on the bonds? What projects we're actually paying for?
It just goes by the bond, because when you bond it, it's all in its entirety. Say because you accumulate, say you have 5 projects,
Mhm.
100,000, then you issue bonds for 500, so the payments are, say, 100,000 a year. I can't tell you which
but I think.
bond is actually, I can tell you what they funded, but the payments don't go necessarily against the particular, ordinance.
Because I want to kind of go back to where Jim was and kind of talk about our debt a little bit. And what I mean by that is, we have debt service, we're paying bonds, it's X amount of dollars every year. Here, we're expecting to pay $299,000 debt service.
Right.
Now, I don't know how much of that is capital expenditures, and if I'm using the wrong terms, I
It's all
apologize.
capital. It's all
Okay, so as a layperson, okay, I'm looking at this council, you put out $299,000, $300,000, basically to pay for items that we already have.
That's right.
What are those items?
I'd have to go back.
Sandy has.
I'd have to go back to the bond, the actual sale. When you sell bonds,
Right.
it's called an official statement, and it lists the ordinances that you're bonding. So it could be several, ordinances on there, and say you hit $3 million.
Mhm.
Okay, but you add the projects up. I'd have to go back to the last sale to see what those bonds represent, off the top of my head.
Yeah, and I didn't expect you to know.
Yeah, no, I don't
And I'm
know.
not
But
even
you try to
asking-
keep, because you don't go out, put it this way, to do a bond sale, it's expensive. It'll cost you $40,000, $50,000 to do a sale. So what you do is you accumulate all the ordinances and go out once every 5-6 years to try to, keep the issuance costs down.
Do the bonding attorneys get prevailing wage? I'm sorry, I won't go there.
I don't know, I'm not a bond.
Sandy,
Go ahead.
you do have a little more information though on projects, right?
Well, on the bond principal, the 95,000, it's just the way Maura described,
Right.
it's stuff that predates 2003. But the other principal on there for the BAN, the
Mhm.
bond anticipation notes, I do have a list of those.
Okay.
They start with the year 2004, and it's everything up to date that's been, an ordinance has been done.
Right.
But they just have, it's just in short-term notes, it hasn't been bonded, and when we hold the bond sale, that's what it'll encompass. So, most of them are, want me just to?
If it's not too long, sure.
You have road improvement projects, one here that was just called acquisition of equipment, more road improvements. There was repair to gabion walls, the acquisition of the senior citizen bus. There was one here that was called multi-purpose, I don't have details on that. The athletic field complex, road and drainage improvements, more road and drainage. There was a purchase of a garbage truck in 2009. 2010 and 11 were more road projects. Actually in 13, more road projects, and then in 13 also was the dump truck and spreader. So all that together, the original balance on those ordinances totaled about 3.2 million. And then in addition to that, in 12, it's just on a separate page, with more road improvements and new equipment, which was about 417,000. Now, you've been making pay downs on those over the years too, so,
So if you added the pay downs in the budget would be the payment of the bond anticipation note. So if you add all your little payments against
Right.
the individual projects, it would add up the total in the budget, payment of bond anticipation.
That's very interesting, because anyone who knows me knows my big aversion towards the car. And it's very interesting to see that most of our debt is for roads, which people don't think of as being subsidized by government. But every road is pretty heavily subsidized by government, isn't it? Nobody really counts for that in the purchase of your car. But when you take New Jersey Transit, the fees go up, it's too much. Okay, so that's a lot of money for roads. I hope people recognize how much you're paying for roads. Okay. Item 54.
What's the topic, though, so we can?
I'm sorry, hang on, we don't even have to touch that one, that one got answered. Last one, 55. Is this what you were talking about before, capital ordinance is 5,000, what is that for?
Sandy, I'll let you,
How is that different than the
explain that
capital
to the
improvement
council.
plan and all that?
That's for an unfunded ordinance that you're raising directly. And the reason, at the time, the money was not bonded, okay? For whatever reason. I mean, this is going back maybe
Mid-90s.
94. The money was not bonded, but it was spent, so you have to raise that. And subsequent to 94, I think in the early 2000s, you couldn't bond something where you spent the money in excess of 3 years, so you can't go back and bond those projects.
All right, I'm sorry, we gotta go back a minute, I'm sorry.
Okay. You
All right, so
had
you're saying
you had a
back
project
in
in
1994,
Right,
the borough, none of us were there, here, right?
that's right.
So,
I was 6.
you were 6.
I was
So in 1994, the borough
Authorized.
authorized the project to be undertaken and undertook it but didn't bond it?
That's right. They did
How
the
did the
project.
borough pay for it?
Notes. You probably had notes against some of it, got the cash, and then the notes ran out. You can't issue, because you don't get issued a note for 10 years, so it's beyond 10 years. So they have to pay for it in cash. It's just going to sit there. It's money you spend, but you have to physically raise the cash.
And how much total money are we talking about?
What was it? About 99,000 in total.
So are we saying then, to get to 99,000, we're talking about for the next 20 years, we're gonna have $5,000 in this line?
That's right. You have to fund it. You spent the money. Projects were done.
I know you're not gonna know the answer to this, but do you know what the project was?
What was it?
I think it was road projects.
Oh, road project.
It was 2 road
I'm
projects.
not even, I'm just trying to be funny, but I you know, I said, when we discuss this. Well, when you do them every year, I mean, it's essentially every year, it's, you know.
No, it's true.
But that's just a joke.
Cars in
but-
this country is subsidized tremendously.
Right. I was just joking about that, but we did
I know,
speak
right?
about this, so that's what I remember.
She has the ordinance numbers, but
All right, but it was
it
roads?
doesn't give you the project, no, I mean, the actual, what it was.
We
We don't
looked at it,
know.
and it was roads, wasn't it? You and I looked at the ordinances.
It may have been, but I don't remember.
I think it was roads, Bill.
Wow.
I did a lot of research.
I'm pretty sure it was roads.
You
because I
looked in the
looked.
woods, you
Wow. All right, well, Sandy, I appreciate all your time, all your answers. Warren, thank you very much. I learned a lot. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Do you have anything like, anything additional?
No, mercifully, I don't.
No, I just.
I know, but that's still something.
Thank you.
Oh, well, you said no one wants to say something. Okay, where are we?
Mayor, is it possible to take a bathroom break?
Absolutely. Tell you what, 5 minutes?
Perfect.
Thank
We
you.
need a motion or anything for that? I don't know what we should just go.
I don't do the motion here.
No? All right.
We'll take a 5 minute
Want to
break.
make sure we follow the rules.
So discuss it,